Howdy hey, my name is Benjamin Cahoon, and today we're going to be talking about how to get started in pottery. Boom! Have you always wanted to get started in pottery and ceramics but didn't necessarily know how to get started? I'm here to help you out. I started in high school and then started working as an apprentice at a local professional studio, which brought me into my first couple years of teaching clay. After I graduated high school, I actually went to school for ceramics and for art administration. So at my university, I got hired as a studio technician for the studio there. During my few years of working at the studio at my university, I got to learn so much about ceramics, different firing methods, different ways to manage a studio, different ways to work from home, which brings me to my current job. I actually manage this studio. It's at a cultural center near Portland, Oregon. All that to say is I know my beans, like we're gonna get into it and I'm gonna get you started in ceramics in no time. My practice has been greatly impacted by the instructors and the fellow studio mates that I've met over the years, and I'm so grateful for each and every one of them because you really do learn from everybody. All that being said, I know that ceramics can be incredibly expensive and kind of daunting with all of the specialty equipment that you need in order to get started. But do you really need all that equipment to get started? So I did some research and did some brainstorming and looked at my past, and I came up with a few different ways that you can get started in pottery. Number one. Just like the way that I got started is I can't recommend enough if you are in school currently to take advantage of the art programs that you have. Especially in high school, it's really easy to get started with clay when most of the materials and all the equipment is provided for you. There's something about a high school art teacher that is just like the most comforting thing to me. Like my high school art teacher, I love you, Kim, was really, really important in my development as a student, as an artist, and as a person. I also want to take a moment to recognize that early access to the arts is a privilege and not a lot of schools have funding for arts programs. And there's a lot of different socioeconomic variables that go into that. So if you do have the chance to take a ceramics class when you are in high school or early stages of college, please do that. It is an amazing opportunity that doesn't come along very often. Which brings us to number two. Just like in the cultural center that I work at, a lot of communities have centers and arts facilities that will have ceramics programs and instructors to get you started. I highly recommend going online, Googling your community centers and local art centers, and checking their website to see if they have a ceramics program. Some of these programs have donor funding so that the programs are on a sliding scale. Sliding scale pricing structures allow programs to lower the bar of accessibility when it comes to funding for their students. So don't be shy to ask if studios offer sliding scale funding. A lot of times people don't know that it's an option, and so these studios would much rather have more people come in and use the sliding scale than nobody come in at all. Which brings us to our third option. Many cities have professional studios that have working artists in them, meaning there are potters who have their own studios, and sometimes there's commercial studios that allow for instructors to come in and teach courses and for people to come in and use their studio for an hourly rate. A lot of these studios run on memberships, and sometimes they have a little bit of a waiting list. So the same rules apply here. Don't be shy to hop onto websites, to call and ask questions, and to go and explore the studios in your area. I got hired as an apprentice at a professional studio in my hometown. And at that studio, I worked with the artist in order to roll out slabs and to glaze and to make displays for the different pottery cells that we would have. Another one of my responsibilities was to help teach classes. A lot of times with these professional studios, there's a couple different pay rates that go into it, whether it's an hourly rate, a fee for classes, and sometimes there's even glazing and firing fees. So make sure that you ask up front what all goes into their pricing structure at their studios. Like here in Portland, I know that there's a handful of studios that are accepting hourly open studio users as well as teaching classes for beginners. And then we have our fourth and our last option. You can build a homebrew studio. Buying a kiln and a pottery wheel can be really daunting and expensive and be super scary, like where are you gonna put that in your garage? The answer is yes. Most kilns just use like a washing machine plug. But you don't need a pottery wheel and a kiln to get started in clay. You really don't. There are multiple different construction methods when it comes to ceramics that don't include the pottery wheel at all. You could be a hand builder exclusively if you're working from home just getting started. Check out the other videos on this channel to learn some hand building techniques that don't include a pottery wheel at all. Some other ways that you can get around having a kiln in your space is like those professional studios that I mentioned before. They will often rent out kiln space. There are also apps and websites with networks of artists in certain areas that have kiln share functions. So don't be afraid to like post on Facebook or something like that. Like, I need to fire my pieces. Please be careful on the internet. It can be a scary place. But a lot of times potters want some help funding their own firings. Sometimes you'll find like a really graceful donor that will let you fire for free, but oftentimes there's like a small fee that will go along with firing. Another way that you can avoid buying a kiln is by working in air dry clay. I know that a lot of people like scare away from this option, and most of the time this is not a food safe option to make mugs and bowls and like food safe ware, but you can make some really amazing like plant pots and sculptures with air dry clay. So check out your local clay store. If you like really want kiln and a wheel at your house, you can absolutely go with the purchasing equipment new route, which will be pretty expensive, like a couple grand. Wheels can range in size and price anywhere from like $150 for like a little kiln, a little wheel that like has like no horsepower at all the way up until like $3,000 and sometimes even more depending on the horsepower of the wheel. And kilns are very expensive, a couple $1,000s as well. So please, if you are able, look at Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace and offer up, because ceramics materials deserve a second life, and I'm all about that reduce, reuse, and recycle. That's why most of my wardrobe is from the Goodwill. Plus, there are always potters who are phasing out of practice, and they want their materials to live on in another life through you. Please let me know in the comments if you want to know more about how to build a home studio. We can talk through alternative materials and how to make your own tools as well. As a rule, to get into the clay community, all you have to do is be curious, be kind, ask good questions, and be willing to experiment and try new things with your ceramic practice. That's all, folks. Thank you so much for joining me for this video. I hope I was able to give you some ideas on how to get started in your clay and pottery practice. It's an amazing world, and I hope that you join us soon. If you want to learn more about pottery, ceramics, construction methods, and what it looks like to be a part of an art community, make sure you like this video and subscribe to my account. We produce new videos every single week all about these topics. You can also follow me on all socials under Benjamin Cahoon, and if you want to know more than the average public, you can also sign up for my newsletter at benjamincahoon.com. I don't have anything else to say to you today, so be good.